Hi everyone, my name is Corinne and I'm from Jericho Adapts Toys, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to switch adapt a toy. So on this right-hand side, we have a QR code on this presentation that you can follow along at my pace or a later pace if you would like. And on this left-hand side, we have step-by-step pictures on how to switch adapt. So overview and goals for the day. So who am I? What are Switch Adapted Toys? An overview of Switch Adapted Toys, a live tutorial, and what is Jericho Adapts Toys, and how to start your own organization. So who am I? I am a junior at Jericho Senior High School in Jericho, New York, and I am the current coordinator of Jericho Adapts Toys. I volunteered over 100 hours to work with children with disabilities, and I currently run Jericho Adapts Toys in the Long Island, New York City region. So what is Jericho Adapts Toys? Well, it is a free rotating lending library program that works with 7+ schools and programs around the Long Island and New York City region, lending a multitude of toys, 3D printed switches, and other assisted tech solutions. Basically, we rotate about 5 to 6 toys and plenty of switches every 1 to 2 months around the schools and programs. We've adapted over 100 toys and 3D printed switches. And we've also had presentations and adapting sessions just like this one. And this has definitely helped us this year still spread our mission of getting these toys into the hands of people who need it. Because this year, because of COVID-19, our lending library program was put on hold due to safety. But we are very excited to announce that it is starting up again for the next school year. So here's some more photos. So in the middle, you have me teaching teachers and teachers' assistants at iHope how to switch adapt toys. On the right, we have the last year's team at iHope, and in the middle, you can see my brother, who is Michael Dicpinigaitis and the creator of Jericho Adapts Toys. He now goes to Cornell University and is starting up a branch up there working with the Ithaca schools. And on the left, you can see this little boy playing with a toy through using a switch. So more adaptation beyond plush. Today we are going to be adapting a plush toy just because it's a lot easier and faster. But if you want to learn how to adapt one of these hard plastic toys, I really recommend going to Husky Adapt. I have the website linked here. And it's this amazing website that shows before and after pictures of plenty of different types of toys. And here are 2 videos showing before and after and how the toys work. And it's just such an amazing website that you can easily use right at your disposal. And it also tells you what toys to purchase to switch adapt. So where to get battery operated toys? Well, you can get new toys from Amazon, Target, any of your local toy stores. Or you can get gently used toys from Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, or eBay, which is what Jericho Adapts Toys does. And these toys are not already switch adapted. You'll have to do it yourself. So why would you get used toys though? Well, newly adapted toys that are commercially available can be very expensive, and therefore it can be very difficult to obtain by families and schools who need them the most. So by getting these toys from gently used sites and then adapting them at home on your own time, you're saving a lot of money. So this money can go back into buying toys, adapting them, getting them out to as many people who need them. And it's such a beneficial way to be able to adapt and buy these toys. Also, before you buy the toys, make sure to look at the Husky Adapt link in that last slide for which toys to purchase, because again, not all toys are switch accessible. So before you buy a toy, you definitely want to make sure that you can that you can do a switch adaptation on it. So what does switch adapted mean? Well, switch adapted is when you interrupt the original electric circuit to make the toy switch accessible. So in this left, we have this plush dog, and you can see 2 female ports coming out of it. In these female ports is going to be a larger switch that's going to be plugged in, that when you press that switch, the dog is going to turn on and activate, playing whatever it does. We basically do this by soldering the inside copper wires of that female port and the wires on the inside of the toy together, and thus interrupting that circuit. So not only can you press that paw or press the original button to turn on the toy, but now you can press that larger outside switch, which is especially helpful for people with complex bodies who are more mobile in different parts of their bodies. And on the right, we have this young little boy playing with a truck using a switch. So materials, we're going to need a couple materials before we start. So we're going to need a battery operated plush toy, which is not shown here, but I show it in my tutorial. You're going to need a soldering kit, which is a solder and a solder gun or solder wand. So here's my solder wand, and here's the solder. This is basically metal that you're going to be putting on the copper to make sure that all the copper has stayed together. You're going to need a sewing kit, but really all you need is a seam ripper and needle and thread. Obviously, you need the needle and thread to stitch up the toy once you are done fixing the wires on the inside, and the seam ripper is to rip the toy so that you can get the wires from outside the toy to adapt them. You're going to need a 3.5 millimeter female jack to stereo cable, which is shown up here. We're only going to be using the female part, so you can cut off the male part if you have it. The female part is the one without that little piece sticking out of it. And there's going to be 3 wires in this one. There's going to be a red, a yellow, and a white. I just want to let you know that you can cut off the white if you have that. In the one that I use in my adaptation, there is no white wire. There's only 2. So I don't need to cut off the white wire. But if you have those 3 wires, make sure to cut off the white. You are not going to be using it. You're going to need a wire cutter, a wire stripper, or you can use scissors. In my adaptation, I use scissors, and I also use a wire stripper. These scissors are obviously used to cut the wires in half. And the wire stripper is used to take out that outside coating, just so you can get that copper wire on the inside so that you can solder, put metal around it. You're going to need electrical tape, or you can use a different type of tape like duct tape, but I use electrical because that is what the purpose is for, to tape up electrical wires, and it's shown there. Adjustable helping hands. These are optional, but they're definitely very, very, very useful. Basically, what they're used for is to clamp down the wires so that you can use both your hands when soldering or when twisting the wires together, so that you can be as precise as you can possibly be. So I definitely, definitely recommend getting some adjustable helping hands. Also, all of these are linked. So if you have the slides presentation, you can just click on it and know where to get. And a ruler, which is also optional. I didn't use one in my presentation, but if you want your cables or wires to be very, very precise, then I do recommend using your ruler to measure them out before you start. So, the process. So here on our left-hand side, we have a schematic showing a plush toy prior to wire adaptation. So as you can see, we have this battery, which is the battery on the inside of the toy, 2 wires connecting to this button, which really would be the paw, the foot, wherever you press, and that toy turns on. It's just this current is going straight through from the battery to the original button. But this can be very, very difficult for people with complex bodies to press this button. Not all of them are so mobile in their hands. Maybe they're more mobile in their heads. So what they really need is a larger switch that they can more easily access this toy and turn on this toy. So on our right, we have a schematic showing a toy plush wiring after adaptation. So we have the battery, we have the original button that we had there and our original 2 wires, but this time we have our female cable now soldered into these wires. Now you can see this metal, that is the solder. It connects basically these copper wires on the inside. This basically interrupts that original electric circuit going from the battery to the original button. And now you can press the button to turn on the toy, but now you can also press this larger switch where you can place anywhere around the child so that they can, when they press that switch, the toy is activated. And that is that switch adaptation. So let's go and adapt. But before we do, please visit jerichoadaptstoys.org, our website, for a video presentation that you can follow at a later date and pause while you're adapting. It also has blog posts about what we're up to now, and I definitely recommend checking that out. So our live tutorial. So we have a switch adapting a plush toy, which I'm going to be showing you now. Here we have our toy, our plush toy that we are going to be using to switch adapt, and we have all the materials you're going to need around here. So over here we have our solder wand, we have our solder, our electrical tape, our female cable that we are going to be using to plug into that large switch, our adjustable helping hands down there, and then we have our scissors, our wire cutters, our pre-threaded needle, and our seam ripper and switch. So we are going to first start out with the female cable. So what we're going to want to do here is this isn't attached to that male part, but if it is, just cut it off, cut that male part off, just so you get a part that looks like this. We're going to want to strip off part of this black coating just so we get the cables on the inside get it poking out. So hold down and pull up with your wire stripper. That's where you're going to get the cleanest cut. So as you can see in here, I just have 2 wires. Yours might have 3. If it has a white wire, cut it off. You're not going to need that. But this has that black wire and that red wire, which is just what we need, those 2 extra wires. So now with this is we're going to want to do the same thing. We're going to want to, again, strip part of the wire. We're going to want to take off part of the red coating and part of that black coating, just the tips, so that we can solder them with the other copper pieces that we are going to find inside of the toy. So take your wire strippers, hold down, and pull up, and now you can see that we have that copper showing. That's about the amount you need. You can do a little more if you feel more comfortable with a little more, but I always like to do, I think that amount is perfect. So you can see we have now 2 copper pieces showing just a little bit at the tips, which is just what we need. So we can put this away and we can bring back our plush toy. So you can turn it on and you see that the heart is glowing. You can see it works by pressing that hand since we are going to be switch adapting that right hand. You press it and it's working. It is a fully functioning regular toy. But first we're going to want to turn this off. We're turning this off because when we're adapting, it can turn on because we're messing with the wires, and that can be very, very distracting. So make sure it's off before we start. So we are going to take our seam ripper, and we're going to want to rip a seam between the hand and the body where that you kind of see that seam is already there. We're going to want to do it here because when we sew up the toy, it's going to look a lot better if we sew it where there was already a seam there. It's going to look a lot better. So make sure you get a good amount in there. I think that's pretty good. So you can easily get the wires from out of there. So we're going to want to put away our seam ripper, fish around for those wires inside, and you're going to be able to find them. So you want to pull them out a little bit. They're still going to stick in the toy, so don't worry, but pull them out a good amount so that you have enough to be able to work with. So you can kind of see that they look like just like one wire, but it's not. It's actually 2. They're just kind of stuck together. Some toys aren't like that, but these ones are. So we are going to want to take our adjustable helping hands, and these are kind of like a clamp that we're just going to use so that we can hold them down while we solder and twist. So I'm going to bring the camera a little closer just so you can see it a little closer. And now what we're going to want to do is, because it looks like they're connected, but they're not, we're going to want to take our seam ripper and we're just going to kind of rip a seam from the outside kind of down so it looks like now we have those 2 wires again. If your toy doesn't have this and it already looks like 2 wires, you can skip this step. You don't need to do this step. But if it looks like this toy where it kind of just like the wires connected, then this is what you're going to want to do. You see what I'm doing here? The wires are now kind of separate, so it looks like 2 wires. So now what we're going to want to do is we are going to want to cut down the middle, making it kind of look like 4 wires. So just make a good cut right down the middle. And now it kind of looks like we have 4 wires, 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to strip off this blue coating, just like what we did for that female cord that I showed you before. We're going to want to take one of our lower parts of our wire stripper, just because it is a smaller wire. You see what I did here? That's just what we're going to do with these blue cords. And once you get that copper piece showing in the blue cords, we're going to start to twist them together. So take your wire strippers, go to a lower setting, hold down and pull up and until you see that copper piece showing. That's just what we need. That amazing copper piece. And we're going to do that on the other side too. So you can see now that we have these 2 copper pieces showing. We're going to do it on the bottom as well. We're going to do it to both sides. So now we have all of these wires. We're going to have the copper pieces showing at the tips. A good amount, almost the same amount as the part on the female cord. So you can use your red cord to twist with it or your black cord, it doesn't matter, but I use the red part. And you're going to want to take the two cords at the top and that red cord and twist them together really nice and tight. So it kind of just looks like one copper cord. So really, really nice and tight. Make sure you get all those copper pieces together and twist, twist, twist. So now you have three wires twisted together through the copper that we stripped. So that looks great. And now what we're going to want to do is we're going to start to solder it. So we're going to take our solder wand. It's very, very hot, so be careful about it. You do not want to touch it. And you're going to want to take your solder, which is really just your metal. So you're going to want to put your solder, touching it to the tip of the wand, and it's going to kind of melt that metal. You're going to see smoke, and that's completely normal. It's fine. You're going to want to coat these copper pieces in metal. So coat them all the way, get every single side covered in this metal. I always like to put a little more on than a little less. Make sure you have all of the pieces covered, all that copper covered, because if you don't, it could mess up the connection and the toy might not be able to turn on via the switch. So yeah, get definitely a lot of that metal solder on there. And that looks like a great amount. You see, you can't see any more of that original brassy copper. It just looks like that silver metal. That's what we need. And it's all around. You're going to want to kind of pull a little bit. If it's not coming, not too hard, but just a little tug. If it's not coming out, that means it's probably good and you soldered it enough. So we are going to do the exact same thing on the bottom side with that black and those other two blue and just the three. Twist them together just like what we did, really nice and tight. It will really wants to look like one copper piece. So really twist them together. Really, really, really tight. So it's a lot easier to be able to solder them together. So we are going to take that solder and our solder wands back. Again, be very, very careful. It's very, very hot. And press that solder to the tip of the wands. There will be smoke again. It's normal. It's fine. Don't be afraid. And we're going to get that metal coats that copper all in that metal. That's just what we need. That looks perfect. And it's covered in the metal. If you want to put on a little more, if you see a little more of that copper, just make sure it's all covered on every side. So this looks very, very good. This looks just what we need. But before we do anything else, we're going to want to turn on our toy. We're doing this because we're going to want to plug in the switch to see if the connection has been established to the outside port. We're doing this right now because if it hasn't, or if something may have went wrong, you don't have all the copper pieces covered in solder, it's a very, very easy fix at this point. So we're going to want to take our switch. Mine's just blue. Yours can be any color. But we're going to want to connect the switch to that female port that we have just soldered into our original wires. Press that switch, you see, it's turning on. That means that the adaptation was a success. That soldering was a success. So you can turn off your toy again because, again, we're going to be touching the solder. We don't want it to turn on. So make sure the toy is turned off before you go any further. You can also check the paw too, just making sure that both connections are established. So now what we are going to do after the toy is fully turned off is we are going to take our electrical tape. Again, you can use duct tape, but I really do recommend electrical. It is what the use is for. So we're going to want to take off two pieces because we are going to cover each of this metally soldered part, and we're going to want to cover it in electrical tape. We're doing this because when this goes back into the toy, we don't want these two to touch. If they touch, the toy will turn on. It's going to go on the fritz. So definitely make sure that when you're putting this tape on, make sure it's very, very, very tight. I always go a little lower so you cover part of the wires as well as just the solder. And make sure it's very, very tight. It's not just gonna, slide off in the toy. So that looks perfect. Really, really pinch it on. You can kind of pull it out a little bit, see if it comes off. You need to get a new piece of tape, put it on a little tightly, but it didn't come off. So we are going to take our helping hands out and we're going to start to put the wires inside the toy. But before we do, we are going to want to make a circle kind of with the knots almost with the female extension cable. So this is what the knot kind of looks like. And we're doing this so that we can sew in this circle into the toy. This way that if a child starts pulling on the switch or something is going on with the switch, it won't just bust out of the seam and then you having to do it again or making sure that it's okay. So we are going to now want to take our pre-threaded needle and we're going to want to sew in this circle into the toy. So look what I'm doing. You can see that I'm sewing the I'm sewing I'm sewing it in so you have part of the wire on the top, you have part of the cable on the bottom. So it's kind of like a circle and you're sewing in that plush toy into the circle. When you think you have had enough on it, you are going to want to start to put the circle in the toy. You really want to make sure that you don't see the circle anymore, that you just see that one cable just coming out. So make sure that the circle is fully inside the toy. You're going to want to sew it closed just like how you normally would. And then it'll be good. So now you can see that you can't see that circle anymore. It's sewn inside the toy. That is just what we need. You don't want to see the circle after. You want to have it fully sewn shut. So we're going to want to cut off our excess thread. And now you can see it's just that one switch. You can kind of tug at it a little bit. See, it's not coming out. We're going to want to turn our toy back on. And we're going to want to plug in our switch just one more time into this port just to see again if the connection has been established into the switch, into the port. And we're going to press it and it turns on. As you can see, the connection has been a success. So we have successfully adapted this toy. That is great. That's great news. So thank you so much for coming along with me and learning how to switch adapt. And I'm so happy that you've learned. I really hope this showed you something. You can again pause at any time you would like. So why switch adapted toys? Why are we doing this? Well, number one, it encourages independent play. It demonstrates a cause and effect relationship skills. You press that switch, it turns on that toy. There are also multiple toys for an engaging and fun learning environment. Also, you can learn how to switch access, which is needed to access augmentative communication device, so that these switches can be plugged into these communication devices to help a child speak, help them access this communication device and communicate. They can also be plugged into a computer. This can be used for gaming, for typing, and switch access can also be used for environmental controls. So a switch can be adapted to a light switch so that you can turn the lights on and off with a larger switch. It can be adapted to a door, so that electric door, so that door can open and close using this switch. So here's a video of multiple switch sites using a switch access for gaming. I'm not going to be showing this to you right now, but the link is here so that you can watch it later on your own time. And here we have this Xbox controller, which is adapted to the switches around this young man's wheelchair so that he can now game using these switches, which are adapted into that controller. So how to start an organization like Jericho Dabbs Toys? Well, you start with just one toy. That's all you need, and you build your way up from there. Save money by purchasing used toys. The more money you save, the more that money can go to buying more toys and more equipment to grow your organization. Get in contact with schools and programs around you. The schools that we've worked with have been so happy that we have started this free lending library program, and we have been so happy and lucky to work with them. They've been such a pleasure, and it's just such a win-win all in all. Get volunteers, so high school students, college students. It's a great project outside of school, and so many people will be helping you adapt and willing to adapt once they find out how easy and fun it is to actually adapt a toy. Be organized. Definitely be very, very organized before we send out our next our what we're going to send out to a school. We give them a list of what they have so that we can get everything back. We really do keep track of our inventory so that we make sure we have everything. We are very organized, and it has definitely helped us in the long run so that we keep all of these toys in the best condition possible. You can make an impact. You can make such an impact, even if you don't want to start such a big organization and you just kind of want to switch it up here and there. Really, it's going to impact, even if just one child's life or one person's life. That is so much. You are doing so much, getting them a toy that they can finally be able to play with, something they can finally do after so long of not being able to play with these toys that they wanted to for so long. Now they can finally do it because you have learned how to switch adapt. And it's such an amazing thing and such an amazing skill. And I'm so happy that you're here just wanting to learn how to do this. You can make such an impact. I'm so happy I've made this impact. My brother's so happy that he has made this impact. And we are so happy that you are learning how to make this impact with us. Accept donations for materials. Accept all donations, which leads me into my next slide of how you can help the cause. So up here, we have a link to our Etsy shop, which is where we sell our Switch Adapted toys to people if they want to buy, and then some profits, all the profits go right back in to our organization of buying more solder, buying more equipment that we need. You can go to our GoFundMe, which is here. Any amount helps. All of this money goes to, again, getting more for our inventory, buying more so that we can adapt more. And our Amazon wish list is down here, which has different types of solders, different types of wire cutters, wire strippers, different types of toys that we would love to have, and anything would help. And again, our website is linked down here. You can go look at this if you have any other questions. So thank you so much. Again, right up here, if you didn't get to scan it in the beginning of here, we have that QR code for the presentation, which again has links to almost everything in it. So I definitely recommend saving this presentation for a later date. And any questions or comments, you can contact me at jerichoadaptstoys@gmail.com or corinne5@gmail.com. This is my personal email, so I will definitely get back to you much, much, much faster on here if you have any pressing questions. But thank you so much for coming today and learning how to make an impact of Switch Adapting Toys and helping us on our mission on getting Switch Adapted Toys into the hands of everyone who needs them. So thank you so much, and I'll see you sometime soon. And thank you so much for learning with me. Bye.